Welcome to the Business at the Speed of Sell podcast, where you learn how to accelerate the growth of your online and offline businesses, profits, and personal income. Tune in daily to get the tips, tricks, and tactics that have generated over $100 million in online and offline sales. Now, here's your host, Anthony Flatt.
This is Anthony Flatt, and you're listening to Business at the Speed of Sell podcast. Today, I want to talk about domain names. A domain name is really the virtual street address of your company, your product, or your service. And you really need to make sure that you get this right. And a lot of people don't put that much thought and effort into getting a domain name. They buy hosting service, and the hosting company, computer program, if you will, offers a name for their website and they go with it. Or somebody tells them you should name your website this because it's really cool. Or, there's a lot of things that go into this, but you really need to think about what is your presence on the internet? What is your business? What is your product? What is your service? And how is it going to be represented? And I'm going to go over a few things that you need to think about in picking a domain name. But first, let's talk about picking a company. There's a lot of companies out there that offer domain name subscriptions. A lot of the hosting companies offer domain name subscriptions as well. But my favorite company that I've used, and I've used for close to 10 years, is Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com. I use them and I continue to use them because they're easy. Their prices are very competitive and reasonable. And every month they offer some sort of discount so that when I am buying my domain names, I'm saving 20, 30%, 10%, whatever the offer is that month, above and beyond what I would normally get. So not only do I get a really reasonable and competitive price, but they also offer a discount every single month. So I get a little bit off every single month. And their service has been very rock solid. I've got about 100 domain names and I don't have any issues with them. So look for a company that you feel best about, but Namecheap.com works for me, and take a look at them. So let's talk about the domain. So first off, don't pick a name that's already taken. Now, that's something that you would think, well, duh. I mean, of course, we're not going to pick a name that's not already taken. But you would be amazed at how many people have went out, picked a domain name. Either they researched it and saw that it was available, or they didn't research it. They went out and printed out their business cards and T-shirts and everything else, figuring that when they got that computer programming person on board, that programmer would then go get the domain for them and set it all up. To come to find out that when they went to go get the domain, it was no longer available, or it was never available in the first place. So as crazy as it sounds, make sure that the domain you're looking for is not already taken. You can check out the availability of that domain name on Namecheap. They have some tools for searching that name. And there's also other tools out there for searching combinations of names. One of the things that I would suggest you do is to create a list of all the words that represent your company, your product, or your service, and then play around with these different words to kind of come up with what your name should be. If you create this list, and as you're going through and looking at domain names, and you have these things that represent your company, it'll help you pick out a name that matches your company, your product, or your services. If at all possible, and I mean this strongly, pick a domain name that is a .com. Now, when I register my domains, I register the .com and the .net, and sometimes the .org, although I've kind of stopped doing that. But the whole idea behind registering the .com and the .net is if your product, your service, or your company becomes very successful, you don't really want somebody getting the .net and using the exact same name as you and then using that to try to siphon off some of your customers. Now, it'll be a little bit harder for them to market that, but a .net is not impossible to market. And I would strongly suggest if you really are in love with a domain name and somebody else has the .com and you're thinking about going out and getting the .net, I would advise against it. Because when you're doing your marketing and you tell somebody your domain name, if they forget to put .net and they by default put .com, which most people do, then that customer is going to go to that competitive website. So you're going to lose that customer by going to that competitive website. So don't choose any of the trendy domain names .biz, .org, .cc, .pro, .me, .tv. Stick with a .com really 90% of the time, if at all possible. Now, don't pick a domain name that is hard to spell. that uses uncommon or unusual words or uncommon spellings. Don't say thanks, THNZ instead of K, or THX. Don't use words like phone being FONE instead of PHONE. Those are just going to be very confusing and difficult for people to find your domain because you didn't use the common spelling. And also don't make your domain name too long. Now it's getting more difficult because a lot of the one-word domain names are gone. The better one-word domain names are gone. So you can't go to postoffice.com. It's taken. A lot of those single part domain names are gone. So you have to go to probably a 2-part, 2-word, or maybe a 3-word domain name. But you want to keep those very short, very common, very easy to understand and remember words so that you're not making it too long. And don't make it something that there's multiple spellings. There's there, and depending on how you say it, there's sell and sale. And so really try to stick to the ones that are easier to figure out. Don't pick a domain name that is hard to say. If it doesn't roll off your tongue, you really want to try to find something that's better and easier to say. And I'll say this too. Domain names, if you really want to have a domain name for keyword searching reasons, for Google searching reasons, and it's a domain name that is not going to be typed into the computer, it's just going to be forwarded from another link, or it's going to be a link on your website, but you want that domain name for keyword searching reasons. As long as the customer is not going to have to type in that word, that phrase, that domain name, I guess it's okay to have one that's got some keywords in it. But even Google knows that people are using the domain name to stuff in keywords, and they're making domain names that are 5 and 6 words long. And Google is adjusting for that as well. So there's not a huge advantage to doing all of that, stuffing all of that into one domain name. Also, don't pick a domain name that sounds a lot like a competitor or a big known brand or some well-known company or some well-known slogan. If you're picking something that sounds very similar, and instead of using the word 3, THREE, you use the number 3, that's going to be very confusing because people are going to hear you say it. They're going to remember that this other company, they heard the advertisement and they're going to type it in the way they remember it. And it's going to be sending people to a different website. But also you can't use company names in your domain. So you can't use, discountamazonproducts.com because Amazon is not going to want you using their name in your domain name. And they will come after you. They will shut you down. They do search the internet looking for people using their name because that diverts the search traffic from their website. That diverts the customers from their website. So don't choose anything that sounds like another business or uses another business's name in there or sounds like another business but with a little twist on it. Don't get cute. Try to stay far and away from any corporate business names or their products or services names so that you don't run into any legal hassles. Don't use dashes, hyphens, funny characters, numbers, or anything that wouldn't normally be in there. So if you can't get pizzaman.com, don't do pizza-man.com. It's just not going to work for you. I've had some that have had some dashes in there. And again, if it's not a domain name that people are going to have to type in, you could do that just to get the keywords in your domain name. But for the most part, if it's going to be your primary domain name, if it's going to be your company, your product, or your services main domain where everybody's going to go to, you definitely want to leave out any kind of special characters, underscore, hyphens, dashes, numbers. Go with the very simple, small words that are easy to say, easy to understand, and easy for people to remember. Try to pick a domain name that fits your business. If you have an existing business and you're picking a domain for your business or you're picking a domain for your products or your services, try to pick something that fits with the name of your company and your branding. But don't try to get too cute with it. If you can't get something that fits your company, don't spend the time really trying to cram a name into your company or your brand. You don't want to take Bob's Automotive and make it Bob's Automotive 23 because Bob's Automotive was taken. Bob's Automotive 23, A, it's got a number in it. B, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make any sense. So you definitely want to try to pick something that fits your company's name. Now, here's something that's going to be a little bit radical. If you have a great product name, but it's not representative of your company. But you chose this domain name because of the service that you provide. And your service has now gotten really, really big. Consider changing your name. Businesses do that all the time. As they expand their business and they evolve their business, they actually change their name. I mean, Domino's Pizza has just recently changed their name to Domino's and dropped the pizza because they also do sandwiches and they also do chicken wings and they also do salads and breadsticks and other things other than just pizza. So they wanted to get rid of the Domino's Pizza. They wanted to get rid of the pizza off the end to be more representative of their brand, Domino's. So if your product is more popular than your business name, actually consider changing your business name or changing to doing business as, whatever that brand is. Because that's what's really getting you the focus and the traffic and the notoriety. Keeping your name, certainly you can keep your name in there, but you definitely want your brands and your services to stand out. You definitely need to research this. Go out and look in any of the search engines and find tools for picking domain names. And there's a lot of them out there that you can put in 3 or 4 words and it'll pick them and match them and look at them together. And then look and see who in my industry is using what kind of domain names. And you'll get a really good understanding of the kinds of domains that are being used in your industry. If you have a local business, you can definitely use your local city name or your area or your state name in your name. If you need to niche it down, instead of being Bob's Automotive, maybe you want it to be Lawrenceville Automotive or the city of Beaufort or whatever the county or the city that you live in, whatever the name of that. If you're a local business, that's one of the things that you can do is actually call your company by, the county name or the city name plus whatever your business name is. And that'll give you a very local feel. Now, if you're not a local business, don't do this because it's going to be driving a sense that you're, the small time local guy. If you want to be the local guy, that's a great thing to do, but don't do it if your intention is to market to a wider audience. And lastly, I'll say, don't just run out and pick a name out of frustration. Say that, well, I've been looking at this for a long time. I've got to go out and pick a name. I've got to go use a name. So you end up picking a name that doesn't represent your business, doesn't represent what you're trying to do, and you end up getting stuck with that name. Certainly go out and take all these different keywords that represent your business and what you're trying to accomplish, and then use these keyword tools, these domain tools for searching for domain names to pick out your domain, and maybe even have to settle on a couple domains. Maybe you end up grabbing 2 or 3 because you can't really choose between them. It costs you less than, probably $12 to register a domain and maybe less than $20 a year to maintain that domain. So grab a couple of them until you really feel comfortable with one of them. And then over some time, maybe you let those other ones go, or maybe you keep those and play with some advertising and some marketing using those other domain names as well. But don't have 2 or 3 brands for your company. You really want to drive everything to one brand. And don't specialize that brand too much into you. If you ever want to sell your business, the last thing that you're going to want to do is have you, your name, your picture, and your persona wrapped up in your business. If you do that, that's great. That is a way to sell a local business, to sell you, to sell your personality. But you'll never be able to sell that business to somebody else because they're never going to be you. So you certainly want to have the ability to sell that business at some point in time and not have to have them rebrand the entire company and all the products. So definitely try to pick something that is more representative of your business without tying directly to your personality.
If you have a question for Anthony, then head over to www.anthonyflatt.com and leave him a voicemail message for a chance to have your question featured on the show. Thanks for listening to the Business at the Speed of Sell podcast at www.businessatthespeedofsell.com.